All right, welcome to the next edition of the Jiu Jitsu Therapy Podcast with Chris Mize. Today we've got Coach Michael in again, and like I said, we've kind of had a good time, the last few times you've been in. So,
Kinda had a good time. One day I'm gonna get past the kinda level. I don't. Is there a level above that, Chris? Could you expand on that, please?
I've got to see it's pretty good. We had a pretty good time. I think actually kind of probably pretty good's probably better.
Okay,
So we'll go with that.
That's like getting my purple belt.
We're working. I'm gonna have to work on a whole list of that. We'll have to look at the curriculum.
Okay.
But anyway, so today's episode is Jiu Jitsu really for everybody? So one of the organizations actually uses Jiu Jitsu. Jiu Jitsu is for everybody, I believe, is their thing, and it sounds awesome. I mean, it is really good. Looks good on a bumper sticker, T-shirts, all those things. And I think ideally that's a great plan. I mean, especially if you're doing jiu-jitsu, you can easily see how if the jiu-jitsu bug has bitten you, you can easily see why you think it should be for everybody. Man, everybody's going to get benefits. And personally, I do think that everybody could benefit from jiu-jitsu. But there's a lot of reasons why it's not really for everybody, and it's not my fault. Turns out. So some of it may be, but not all of it. But in the room I'm in right now, there's a lot of martial arts training knowledge and things like that. We've all been doing jiu-jitsu for a while, and over the years, I've seen many more people quit than I've seen stick around. It turns out. So I think that's just the natural flow of things. One, jiu-jitsu is hard. It's not easy. You don't just show up and do well. You have to show up and put effort into it. And sometimes it's not fun. Sometimes you have to get in there and do stuff you don't like. It's just, so it has to fit your personality. So I think that's one of the things, So like I said, what kind of drew you to jiu-jitsu to begin with, Michael? I mean,
To be honest, my son.
mm,
I was stuck on Wing Chun. I've been doing Wing Chun since I was 23.
mm-hmm,
So it's like, 26 years now.
mm-hmm,
And my son had been taking private lessons of Muay Thai, and he got into a bit of trouble in the UK with a
mm-hmm,
guy,
mm-hmm,
and he had a fight with him, and he got down on the ground, and he said to me, he said, "Dad, when I was on the ground, I really didn't know what to do." He said, so he ended up using some street fighting techniques to get him out of trouble.
mm-hmm,
He came over. He was having some trouble in the UK, so I brought him over to the US, and he spent 90 days with us. And he said, he told me this story, and I said, okay, well, you know what, we'll go and find Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
mm-hmm,
So sought out a school, did some private lessons, and then he went back home, and then I carried on, and then moved out to Alabama, and I thought, I was hooked by that point. I was no good at it. I'd not really had the best teaching at that point in time, but it was something that was helping me. I don't know, stay in balance, I guess, more than any other martial art I've done before. So, and that's what drew me to it, I guess.
mm. Well, I think, and you had a long history with Wing Chun, and
Yeah.
and I mean, you're an instructor level in that, and it's weird. We'll be doing some jujitsu stuff, and some of that stuff will come out, and
Yeah.
it's very jujitsu like a lot of it, the framing
Yeah.
and different things. So really, everything when you look at stuff that really works across the board, we see a lot of similar technique
Yeah.
stuff. And Coach Greg Nelson is one of his ongoing jokes is he'll be doing something. He says, "Yep, there's the Wing Chun right there." He'll say, "There it is." He'll just say, "There it is. There's the Wing Chun."
Yeah.
He'll bring that out because Greg is very well versed in a lot of different things too. But yeah, I think people go to jujitsu. I think now it's becoming kind of a trendy-ish thing to where people will do it because they think it'll just help, like I said, help them balance their life out. Um, with Joe Rogan and Jocko Willink and stuff like that, their podcasts, they reach so many people. Both those guys black belts in jujitsu, and so I met Joe Rogan back in I think probably about '96 maybe. I was training with Boss Rutan in California, and he was on news radio then, and so it was still on. And I met him out at Beverly Hills Jiu Jitsu. But And like I said, he was doing it then. You know, he's always done. He was a lifelong martial artist. But you know, as we go through our life, you know, the desires we have. Some people, they come to us now. It's a reactive thing. Why
Yeah.
people would find it. It's like, oh, they got their kid got beat up and
Yeah.
they want them to get some confidence and have some skill, or you know, it's like they see stuff in the news and they want to be better prepared. So I mean, that kind of thing brings people to it. And again, people may want the socialization aspect of it, which is another big thing. But I think when you start looking at obstacles, why we say it may not be for everybody is ego, number one. You have to be willing to go in and, like I said, kind of get beat up a little bit and have someone else's will put on you to see what it's like and realize, hey, I need to figure out a way out of this. And I think even
Yeah.
in the early UFCs, that's one of the things that it was there to prove that, you know, you need to know how to deal with things on the ground
Yeah.
in a technical way. And a lot of people just don't, their ego can't take it. You
No,
know?
I think that's a really valid statement. Their ego can't take it, and
Mhm.
I think in the early days of me doing jiu-jitsu, I was so frustrated, you know, because I couldn't pull any moves off. I couldn't, you know, I was constantly getting tapped out, whatever. And if you've got that kind of ego, you're not going to be able to stay the course, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like,
Well, and you really get to it, unlike when you're doing sparring, like stand up fighting, you get tagged a few times, you get kind of stupid. In jiu-jitsu, you're rolling around on the ground, it's uncomfortable. You're realizing every moment.
hmm
But you know, it's
yeah.
like, oh my God, I can't get out. When you can fight as hard as you can and can't get out of something and
Yeah.
know that you're in trouble, that's very sobering.
Well, it's more sobering if you've got about 50 pounds on the guy or girl you're rolling with and you can't get out of something.
Or they're tapping you out or
Or
choking you,
yeah,
right?
or you're rolling with some, you know, and then in time you're rolling with somebody that's got 50 pounds on you, and then
Oh yeah,
you're at least surviving,
right, right.
you know.
Yeah,
So
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. Um, you know, I think talking about becoming comfortable with the uncomfortable. I
yeah,
think jujitsu is good about that. But again, that uncomfortableness, and we've talked about on a previous podcast, you know, talking about having the ladies self defense classes, and sometimes women aren't comfortable dealing with men on that level of that. But then again, it's a have to. And like I said, jujitsu, we all train with each other. Doesn't matter if you're
yeah.
the biggest guy. You know, you need to learn to address and get comfortable with different body types and being able to defend with that and just interact with people. Again,
So
it helps you across the board.
so what are the main reasons for people not staying in it? I mean, is it primarily, you know, like, got to talk about it? It's financial,
Yeah, I mean,
you
it's not a
know.
cheap martial art to do. I
No,
mean, if there is such a thing, I mean, it's not a. I would say most jujitsu schools I know of aren't the money pits that some of the I hate to say exactly what art it is, but you know where
yeah,
guys are testing every 3 months and
mm,
you know you pay for the test and you
yeah.
pay for this. Oh, we've got a competition team uniform that you need to buy. You know, jujitsu is kind of bare basic, but the uniforms are expensive. You know.
Yeah, but you know, is it primarily financial? Is
Mm-hmm.
it family commitments?
Mm-hmm.
Is
Yeah.
it work commitments? Is
Mm-hmm.
it, you know,
Social, say social.
yeah? So you
Yeah.
know, what have you noticed over the past God, how many years? What's
Right.
been the main reason they've come to you and said, "Hey,
Eh,
I'm not coming anymore," or do they just go away?
all of the above. I've seen people that the significant other was the biggest hindrance of training
Really?
because it was taking time away. I've seen that. I've seen responsibilities, and then it's a combination. You might have an ego issue that comes up because they can't train but 1 day a week, and they feel like they're getting handled in class, and they don't think they'll have time to get better. So they get out of the habit of it. They realize they forget about what it was like to be in that bad
Mm,
situation and to know what it's like to get through that situation. And they think, hey, I'm just better off not doing it. And so they
yeah.
stop doing it. Um,
I'm gonna throw a stab in the dark here. I would guess that people getting injured is probably one of the lowest reasons, the lowest of them, that they say, "Hey, I'm getting hurt doing this. I don't want to do it anymore."
yeah, it happens. I mean, it just depends. And people worry. But I mean, this is the deal. It goes back, always goes back to ego. And I know there can be argument, oh, you got to have ego. Yeah, so that you'll live. I get it. But the thing is this, don't complain to me about you getting hurt when you're the one trying to kill everybody.
Mm,
That happens a lot.
yeah,
People bitch and complain like,
yeah,
dude, I'm always getting hurt. Well, you're going at them 100 miles an hour
yeah,
and I know that you're a 26-year-old strapping buck that had never had anything happen to you, but you know what? Don't do that.
Don't you hate that when you're rolling with a kid that's in their early 20s? I mean, I'm in my late 40s now,
Uh-huh.
and you manage to tap them out, and kind of stay on top. And I feel like shit for about 2 days afterward. Yeah, yeah. I feel like shit for two, and they just come bouncing back as though nothing ever happened.
Right. It was a fight to the death for you.
Yeah,
And for them,
what
it
do you
was
call
like,
it? A death
hey,
match.
hey, Coach Mike, you want a Gatorade?
Yeah.
So, yeah, sure.
Yeah. I was taking it easy.
I'm taking it easy. But anyway, yeah. So you're right. I mean, but people do that, and then they'll say, and young guys, their mamas will be, I'm tired of you hearing about you getting hurt and all that. So there's a lot of factors, but yeah, I think that's a biggie. But if you can't, most people feel after a while, I say, you've got to get over the fact of it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
And you're not going to come in like we say before. Sometimes you're the hammer, sometimes you're the nail, and sometimes you're going to be the nail. And you've got to realize the fact you can't go in there and just whoop everybody in the room.
Yeah.
And if you are going in there and whooping everybody in the room, you probably need to go somewhere else. And your instructor probably isn't going to mind because one, not because necessarily it might not be good, but you may be like just beating people up and not doing good jiu-jitsu either. We've dealt with a lot of guys that are super athletic guys, and they're hopping around a lot and moving around. I mean, they don't care what's going on. They're so competitive, and people can be a liability. So sometimes it's time for people to go.
Do you ever have people that have had to quit because of distance of driving?
Yeah. I mean, back in the old days, shit, people would drive. It was not uncommon for people to drive an hour one way, and traffic wasn't like it is now.
No.
I mean, that was in the mid-90s.
We had a guy who came to class. He walks home from Cahaba to Homewood. Homewood.
Yeah,
walks it.
He hadn't been training long. But,
No.
I mean, we'll see. Hopefully he can hold up. But, I mean, but he was trying anyway, jiu-jitsu is educational, y'all.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're trying to lead him in the
That's
right
commitment.
direction. That is commitment, my friend. Coach Chris has rolled with that young man. And,
So
but
have I.
he's a good guy. He's
He
just,
is.
He's excited about jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I'm happy for him. That's good. But, when all the above are different reasons why people fall out. Their expectations may not be what they're expecting or something. They may think it's just going to get all of a sudden easier after a while. Guess what? It doesn't. I mean, it just actually probably gets harder. Your perception just changes.
So I guess, when we're talking about all these factors for people not doing jiu-jitsu, it isn't for everybody. I think that's well, it isn't.
We're just cutting to the chase. Yes. But yeah, you're right, because a lot of people don't have the adaptability to do it, or they don't give it time because they want immediate. This millennium, people don't have time to wait around to get better at something.
Well, exactly. Yeah, it's like it's instant gratification. Yeah.
Right.
And who's got the patience nowadays to wait 2 years to get a blue belt and 3 years to get a purple belt or whatever,
right.
10 years to become a black belt? That's taking commitment.
That is a commitment.
And financial commitment. Hours. I mean, it's a huge commitment.
Yeah, and I think we were talking earlier about the politics of jiu-jitsu, and what we're going to do probably a podcast on that specifically. But you have to be in the game for a while before the politics really affect you. So early on, it's not an early ruler outer. Later on down the road, if you get guys that are in 3 or 4 years, then the politics, it's like of different things.
I've had the politics in Wing Chun, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Every Christmas, there's a red envelopes expected to be sent somewhere, and it's not like change for the Salvation Army. Let me put it that way, And if you don't do that, then you're no longer an instructor,
Right.
I mean, that's the way that it rolls.
Well, as they say, God created religion, and the devil said, "Hey, let me help you organize that." So I mean, the organization of things does get in the way of the joy and the happiness of things a lot of times. But I'm a firm believer, and present company included, a really good instructor can make jiu-jitsu accessible to anybody.
Yeah.
Now, whether that person's willing to make the commitment, to hold up their end of it, that's something else.
Mm.
You know, your school culture plays such a huge part. Gracie Baja has been very great. Their school culture is awesome if you want to compete. If you don't want to compete, it may not be the place for you. But you know, they're awesome at competing and they're awesome at doing stuff. And there's a lot of other schools around. Your school has to match you. That's the
Yeah.
thing. And if you go into the wrong one, people get a bad taste. You know, I mean, I've had people, you know, I've had blue belts that couldn't do a good scissor sweep. That doesn't mean, you know, I mean, it doesn't mean anything other than their instruction is different, but they like the culture of their school.
But then some people like that, you know, the Gracie Barra model, you know. I mean,
Right.
when I was in the airport in Lima, there was a
Mhm.
bunch of them. They all had the same backpack,
Oh yeah.
the same jacket.
Oh yeah.
But some people want that, almost like the military, you know. They want to have the
Right.
uniform, have the this.
Well, it's a status thing too.
Yeah.
I mean, people know the name. It's like we have it on our, you know, we have, you know, Gracie Jiu Jitsu on our gis, two different branches of the tree. I mean, it's what it is, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. But it's not just about the brand. It's about what the culture of your school is, because our culture of our school is different than other Gracie Jiu Jitsu schools.
Yeah.
We have a lot of influences on different things that affect our program. Coach Eric Paulson's CSW plays a big part in, you know, our mindset anyway. But we love technical jiu-jitsu. And Master Sauer has provided a great platform of, you know, excellent jiu-jitsu for us and the perspective of what makes good jiu-jitsu. So, you know.
So do you get guys leaving the gym? I mean, I don't know of it, but any guys leave the gym because you know we're not competition focused, really.
Right.
Do they do that? Have they said, hey, I'm
That's a really good question. I think probably have a few, but you know, across the board, if you look at the bell curve of it, no. You know, is it enough of a thing? Because I've had very few people that was their thing. You
Yeah.
know, that was just their thing. They weren't maybe primary training people from us anyway. I mean, you know, we've had people that went to school away that trained with us, and they were more of the other school anyway.
Yeah.
But if you're in a college town that's really, you know, got a bunch of young guys, strong
Yeah.
guys in it, you're going to be a competition-based school primarily. You know, we've always looked at self-defense. When you hear us carry on conversations, our perspective about violence and self-defense is far different than a lot of our other jiu-jitsu school brethren out there, just because our perception of violence and stuff is different. We know it's out there, and that's why we train. You know, we train to where we're ready when we step out of the dojo.
Yeah.
That's our thing. It's not doesn't all just take place in the dojo.
Yeah. Do we ever get guys coming in expecting something different than jiu-jitsu, expecting MMA, for example?
No.
Come in and you know and expect a Brazilian jiu-jitsu school to be teaching
Right.
MMA.
Right. I think very rare, because usually if you as a person who handles the phone on the end, a lot of times I can send those guys to the place they need to go.
Yeah.
You know, and I want people to be happy. I don't want people to come in and us not be able to fill the bill. So if I discuss things correctly,
Yeah.
they know what they're getting into, and I'll say, you know, and if you don't like that, you're welcome to come in and try a class anyway.
Yeah, sure.
But you need people, you know, if they want to fight, they want to be a professional fighter, which is, you know, kind of like a pipe dream thing. Very few people, you really have to be a super athlete nowadays to ever actually think about fighting in the UFC. You know, back in the old days, people didn't know the same stuff that we know now. And now fighting technology's gotten so good. I mean, and the athletics are so good. There's really great athletes in MMA now. Used to, it was like, you know, the shoe store salesman down the road was a fighter.
What was it? Combat athletes, yeah.
Yeah, now everybody's a combat athlete. I mean, and it used to be the best athletes came out of other sports. Now we've got great athletes that are starting in MMA.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's going to pay off because the money's not there right now. And I don't see it getting a lot better right now because the UFC has a handle on it. That's another story. But hopefully one day we can discuss the, making money in jiu-jitsu. We need to get some guys on that, that are sponsored athletes that are actually making a decent living. There's not too many people other than maybe Gordon Ryan and some of the big dogs out there that are making money, but he's also working his ass off, fighting and, doing
And I'm
stuff.
just wondering with some of these kids, the evolution of their jiu-jitsu, and at what point are they going to want to branch off and say, hey, I want to do MMA, or I want to do competition jiu-jitsu, or,
Right. Well, I think people do competition jiu-jitsu because they either don't want to fight MMA, but they want to compete.
Yeah.
And then guys will still do competition a little bit and still fight MMA if that's what they want to do. but you don't see too many recreational MMA fighters nowadays. I mean, everybody's thinking they're going to do something, whether
Yeah.
they're not, whether they're going to do it or not. Um, but anyway, that's
So,
back to politics.
but do you think jiu-jitsu is for everybody? Your
Um,
personal opinion.
I think in the proper setting it can be. I think I can structure a program for an individual that will work. Now, whether they can train with the main group of what the meat of your school program is
Mm.
and be happy, can't say that. But I mean, I know I can do privates with people. They can get better at self defense and jujitsu doing that kind of stuff. But that's on a private basis. If their mind is not right on it, they're not going to be able to train and roll with everybody else and be happy just because they can't take it. I can modify my rolling to where I can get people rolling and help them get over those sticking points. However, in the whole big class spectrum, some people have so much anxiety. There's just so many
Yeah.
reasons why people don't do good in a class.
But I think coming back to the other podcast, I think if they do stick it out or they do try jiu-jitsu and they realize what it's about, it helps them to solve problems.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know.
Absolutely, and I mean that's without saying. I mean that you're learning. It's like on the job training for everything. I mean, it affects everything we do because we're all in pretty much. In on
Yeah.
it. It's whatever. You have to. It's just a part of all of our life. It's not like when we take our gi off, we're not doing it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, I think jujitsu can be for everybody, but the situation has to be correct, and I think everyone should do it. But I'm prejudiced. I've been doing it a long time, but and it's not even just like I said with kids, you got to get them going. It takes that Power Ranger mentality out of them, and they understand what real physical conflict is about without punching each other in the face. First thing we teach kids, it's not to punch somebody in the face. When you're doing karate, guess what? You punch somebody in the face. That's what you want to do, or punch them in the chest, or kick them in the leg. That doesn't look nonviolent. And in this politically correct climate of cameras everywhere, we've got to prepare witnesses.
Yeah.
So that's what we train our kids, to do.
But that was funny, watching the kids we were talking about before. When I first saw them rolling, when they would break away, they were kicking each other. Mm-hmm. And like, fast forward a couple of months, it's not happening now.
It's better. Yeah, they were like reactive. They were when you first started. They saw them at the very beginning.
Yeah,
and they were like, it was like a fight, kind of like it was kind of like a fight. And now, as they've learned the rules of engagement, safe training is the main thing. Because if you can't train safely, and that's what I'm saying, marathon, not a sprint. If you can't train safely, your jiu-jitsu lifespan is greatly shortened.
Yeah.
But anyway, Coach Michael, thank you for coming in.
Appreciate
it. I hope everybody enjoyed the podcast. Coach Chris Bowen, thank you for your producing arts and skills. And guys,
it kind of does a Jedi mind trick on me when I'm talking.
I'm uncomfortable.
No.
Yeah, you just had to see the look in Michael's eye. But anyway, so guys, thank you for listening. Try to find us on whatever format you're looking at us on, and hopefully, like I said, you can send us some information if you have any topics that you want us to cover. It's all about y'all, and again, it's jiu-jitsu therapy for a reason. Let's talk it out, and let's find some solutions to some problems. Until next time, have a good one.